like why we're here. So, but then we split up about 2 years ago, which is okay, a year and a half ago. We're very good friends, but we weren't the right couple. And so I stopped going to class. We stopped going to class. What was your question?
My friend and I saw you in St. Louis at the Dance School Society. Well, my one friend had to come to Scooter to see you. She waited in line an hour to see you, and we had such a good time. She's so good now, I can remember.
Oh.
But her question, I don't remember their question, and she never got to ask you was, did you love your body like you did in
Traveling Mercies, yeah. That's a good question. Well, I'm sorry for your loss, and I'm glad you got here by scooter. That's pretty great. Yeah, that was a wonderful event. But I wrote, for those of you who haven't read Traveling Mercies, it's a collection of essays on faith, and there's a piece in it called The Antes, and it's about my thighs. And even when I've been extremely thin, now I'm like very average. I actually weigh 140 if you want to know. But I always had dimply thighs. I just did. And even when I was 13 and 14. And so I ended up at a resort with my two best friends, a married couple, and Sam. And I just kept thinking about that thing Tammy said, that you just don't have that kind of time. And so I put on my swimsuit, filled with feminist passion, which I have a lot of the time, and I left my room with a swimsuit on. And everything was great. I felt like this is heroic. And then I ran into some teenagers. Poor teenage girls at the stop waiting for the shuttle back to the resort. And they gave me that looky little look that you give older people when you're a teenager. That little look of kind of horror. And I just wanted to die. I just felt like humiliated. And I thought, very soon I started thinking, tick-tock, tick-tock. And before you know it, you're going to be 40. And you're going to have dimply thighs too. And the only radiance that's going to come off of you is going to be whether you are really practicing radical self-love and swimming in warm water at every chance you get, instead of worrying about what your damn butt looks like. And I looked at these girls and I knew one was too tall, was way too tall to be okay. And one was a little stocky, and one had not started developing yet, and one had breasts that were already just, too saggy. And I knew that, and they were beautiful, beautiful, beautiful girls. A couple of them were beautiful, and you know what I knew? I knew they weren't okay with these 15-year-old bodies in bikinis, looking at me, and it just filled me with a sense of what works, what fills us, what heals us. It's not going to work if you live from your thighs or your butt. It's only going to work if you live from your heart and your spirit. And so I began, as a daily radical act, smoothing really delicious smelling lotions on my thighs. I always thought of them as the Antes after that, like these nice Antes that had gotten me everywhere I'd ever had to go, that were so strong and forgiving, and how cruel I had been to them. So I put little rose tattoos on them, I put really good lotion on them, and I would insist on the right to wear shorts when it was hot. So sometimes, some days don't go as well as you had hoped. And there have been situations since then where I actually have felt that most old, familiar feeling of the American female, which is that I'm not okay this way. And I need to do something, and then I'm sure I can be okay. But I've learned, if you're not okay at 180, you're not going to be okay at 140. You're only okay where your butt is now, because you're doing this kind of huge love that you would do very easily for your friends and your cousins. And so I feel very, very changed by those insights. And at the same time, I just have to say, if there are certain circumstances, I can still feel that old kind of flush of shame or wishing I'd remembered to go to the gym after I had a child, which I just forgot to do. But most days are much better, and I love my 40s and I love my 50s. But things are not getting higher and firmer. I would admit to you that I have gotten so militant about self-care and self-love. Janine Roth has a book out. It's #1 on the New York Times, and it's #1 at Amazon. She's a really good friend of mine. I actually observed it on the front and on the back, which I've never actually seen before. And we've been talking about this for 20 years, is that if you want to gain a bunch of weight and get very crazy and full of self-loathing, go on a diet. That almost all the time, diets will make you fat and crazy. It's true. So I would call my therapist when I was first doing this work with her, and I'd say, well, I'm just going to eat protein and salads. And she'd say, oh, that's great. I give you permission. How much weight do you actually want to gain? Because you will gain back what you've lost if you're not doing the spiritual work. It's an inside job. And if you're not doing the spiritual work of self-discovery and restoration, then if you start a diet, 95% of people will gain back what they lost plus what. That is just the clinical truth. So this book is so beautiful. She's so funny here. She and her husband lost every cent they have to Madoff, and I'm hoping she gets it back. It's just like kicking butt. I mean, it's the little engine that could, and it will change your life so quickly, like by about the 4th page. So it's called Women, Food, and God. But if you're nervous about religious stuff, it's not religious, it's deeply spiritual. You know, it's like AA or Al-Anon are just profoundly spiritual. There's no religious path, there's no God you need to agree to, you don't need to figure out if you're shot in the Holy Ghost. It's about the spirit that animates us, that we are a piece of. And so a couple more questions.